Next speaker will be Tish Dhar, who is speaking to us today about some lesser-known uses of WhatsApp. Please give him a warm welcome.
Yeah, so you can hear me? Yeah, it's not in text. So this work, I work currently for Geoscience Australia, but this work was done prior to me joining them. So please, so I was working for the last 2 years in Africa. And so that hence the t-shirt. So I picked up this t-shirt when I was visiting Cape Town at the Amazon conference there. And yeah, so it's very relevant to how a lot of Africa functions. WhatsApp is viral. Everyone is on it. The first thing you do after you get a phone is you install WhatsApp, you receive an SMS, and then you don't send an SMS ever again. All your communication takes place in text over WhatsApp. You participate and consume news in WhatsApp. People share screenshots of news articles in WhatsApp. People go out and capture videos and do stuff. You communicate with your friends and family, and I am in a big WhatsApp group of all of my high school friends. I went to high school in Kenya, so all of my high school friends. So the organization which I joined in 2018 in March was a startup doing logistics. I'll talk about another logistics company in this talk, doing different sort of logistics, but pretty much functioned on Google Sheets and WhatsApp, and they had raised like $6 million based on something that didn't have a database, was WhatsApp and Google Sheets. Yeah, so the CEO is awesome. He's a Harvard MBA. He knows how to sell. And then we build the tech after. So this is a different company which also does logistics. I will bring it back around to WhatsApp in a minute. So they're based out of Rwanda, slightly outside Kigali. This is one of their bases of operations in Rwanda. Rwanda has pretty favorable drone operation laws. So this is a drone-based logistics company, not delivering burritos, but more valuable stuff. So they're called Zipline. This is their hangar, and like the thing with the long thing is a panorama shot, slightly distorted. This is a large-scale thing. There's a hangar on one side and a container on the other side, and you can see certain things here in the background. That is the drone recovery mechanism, very much like on an aircraft carrier. It flies straight in and gets hooked onto a line. There are nice videos on YouTube. I have my little video that I picked up. So yeah, this is hopefully this video plays. Whoops. Can I play this video? So I will skip. There's bits of it getting prepped. It's very futuristic. There is an augmented reality app where they test the control surfaces of the drone, check if everything is working. If anything fails, it's modular, it gets picked out and changed, batteries get changed. Payload typically is medical supplies, platelets, plasma, which is quite hard to store locally in small regional hospitals, provide the continuity of power and refrigeration and advanced equipment. And then, yeah, so the wing comes off. And then a new wing. So the previous one failed QC due to the spot checks. So the little QR codes you can see on the wings. So I'll skip ahead to the fun part here at the back, hopefully. So it's ready for takeoff. All the tests have passed, everything. So the entire thing took like 4 minutes. Engines on. Whew, slingshot. That's me being impressed by the awesomeness of it. So these are the battery charging racks. So they continuously operate. That slingshot is continuously busy, doing hundreds of deliveries a day, tens of thousands over the year. And then there's this lady. So she's wearing a beanie because she's in a cold room. This is where the blood and plasma and stuff is stored. Rwanda can be quite warm. It's mountainous, but quite warm. And you can see she's on WhatsApp. So she receives messages from regional hospitals saying, we need this supplies, this much blood. And that's the reliable communication channel from all of the regional hospitals and clinics that this drone delivery system serves back to the base. And then she puts them into an order management system, which then prioritizes the critical nature of the thing that's being delivered. So you can essentially like launch drones via WhatsApp. So just a background on how WhatsApp functions might be familiar to some, might be new to others. Some of it I learned as part of research for this and part of research for doing the WhatsApp protocol. What would I say? Automation is the best word I would say, automation, because WhatsApp doesn't have an API till recently. So it does like initial key exchange, then it creates hashes and creates encryption key per message and keeps on rotating them so that you have like a sort of always a fresh key, and whenever the server does a new key. That sort of this diagram I cribbed from Wikipedia shows that there are two ratchets. So it's called Axolotl protocol or Double-Ratchet protocol. There are two ratchets for generating new keys. There's initial Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and then there's a hash ratchet, and then there's a message key for each message. The protocol, if any key leaks, the protocol can recover by generating a new key. Axolotl is a kind of salamander that has extreme healing properties, and if it comes up, it looks very cute. So it's, yeah, and it looks somehow like the diagram too. Yeah, so that's the double-ratchet algorithm, and it's really good for person-to-person communication and end-to-end encryption of the messages. Turns out it's not so good for group chats. It's sort of an instrumentation layer lays on top to actually form the group. And there have been security papers where there is an issue regarding the acceptance and like sort of the mutual web of trust building that is done in WhatsApp in a certain hacky but centralized way and is not end-to-end encrypted and is actually a side channel. And you can hop on these groups and listen to the messages and so on, or get yourself accepted into the group. Yeah, so in Linux conferences, there is usually a key signing bird of feather session where you in person validate and everyone comes together. Here, identity is established via you having a phone number, and there's sort of a trust, and it's all remote, so the web of trust can be sort of compromised for group chats. So the reason for me looking at WhatsApp's protocol, how it functions, and potentially receiving and sending messages or reading messages automatically was a lot of the logistics is instrumented via WhatsApp in this environment I was in. Orders would arrive via WhatsApp, location updates for where things would arrive, any problems would arrive, so that in order to get visibility on what's going on, either you had like someone looking at 400 WhatsApp channels, or you had some sort of automation going through it and harvesting the data. So why bother with WhatsApp? So network effect, which I said is a big user base, and due to the lack of automation, a lot of it is real human user base. For an NLP exercise, there's a lack of corpus for African languages, and a lot of these messages are being exchanged, and you could probably do some gathering of text here with user permissions or something, which I got from my high school group. Business, so this was particularly my use case, business scaling and automation, seeing how much messages were doing, getting orders in, say, or validating orders for this Zipline guys who are receiving orders for blood or medication. Could do that if you're a bad player. WhatsApp has had to take action in certain countries like India to say you can only spread a message 5 times because like a logarithmic growth of the fake news. There was an incident where people were being assaulted on suspicion of being child kidnappers based on a video being shared, which turned out to be a promo video somewhere else of and then any new person arrives in a village where people have this high trust level for things they see on WhatsApp because they're in this group that is curated and they know each other, and if anything gets shared and they trust everyone in this group, they have a high level of trust of this thing that's coming into their channel. So if something gets shared like that, then that becomes like a heavy belief factor for this. So it is potentially a very bad channel for spreading fake news. Yeah, this was the case. So the company had tried Slack, and then turned out a lot of the transporters, truck owners didn't have email addresses. Slack requires you an email address to get started on, whereas anyone who gets a phone has an SMS, and that's the only barrier to entry to WhatsApp. And then after that, everything else takes place in the app. So what is Slack is worth about the same, I guess, when they listed. So WhatsApp got acquired for that number. I was in a startup scenario, so I was like, oh, well, what is it that makes this very simple thing so valuable? So when I started, I'm a core Python developer day to day, so I was like, I'll try to see what it's sending something over the network. So I will try to do it the Python way, target the server and the protocol. So I use it, and so my bot that I built stayed up for a couple of days, sending messages, occasionally exchanging messages, reading stuff from a group, and then it was kicked out or disabled after 2 days. Currently, if you try to use this particular library, there's a big warning saying, use it with a throwaway phone number to test because you'll be banned instantly. So it's like an arms race between someone trying to use and automate the protocol versus WhatsApp trying to keep only real people and protect their business. That's, I guess, the trick to being worth 20 billion. The YOSAP is quite interesting to see how Axolotl protocol works if you want to read the code rather than look at a little SVG diagram of keys being generated. So it has Python Axolotl. And then the target is the initial Diffie-Hellman key exchange when you sign up, because you're going to get new keys, so it's harder to break in. So when you're getting a new fresh WhatsApp account, you can try to set it up to receive this initial Diffie-Hellman key exchange and then run that on a server rather than on an app. If WhatsApp app does something extra, which they probably have done using the mobile platform's built-in features, or if they do block ban that you can't run this on AWS or something, you can only run it on telco IPs, then it becomes not so usable. The JavaScript way. So I was the first engineer that joined this company other than the CTO. So I was doing everything. So I was doing some React, JavaScript. So I was like, okay, I will try the JavaScript way. And there is Puppeteer, which is like a headless JavaScript browser. And WhatsApp has something called WhatsApp for Web, which is what you saw this lady running on the desktop. So WhatsApp runs on the phone. It's end-to-end encrypted. And then they have WhatsApp for Web, where the phone, you can scan a barcode on the website, and the phone then establishes a connection to essentially a JavaScript page and forwards any decrypted messages for you to view in the screen. I'm not quite sure about the protocol it uses to forward the messages from the phone to the browser, but they're there in the browser, and if you can automate and use a headless browser, you can read these messages, and all this, the WhatsApp library provides all these functions. And it should work, because as long as WhatsApp for Web works and Puppeteer works, WhatsApp shouldn't tell the difference between a real headed browser and a headless browser. Otherwise, the model for the web would be broken completely. So it uses headless Chrome, built on Node.js Puppeteer. You can scan the barcode that it shows initially to log in. WhatsApp shouldn't differentiate it. So this is like a sample conversation with my wife. It's like, I'm preparing for the demo. It's like, oh God, what are you doing? So yeah, so that's sort of how it works. It converts the WhatsApp into a command line, and you can exchange messages, and it will drop into different sections. So it requires a lot more work. It's a library. It requires a lot more work for you to scan across channels, see any new messages coming in, and pull them into a database or any other analysis format you want to use. And yeah, but it does work. Another way you could target the messages, the Android way. Android will generate notifications when messages arrive using GCS and all these things. But WhatsApp tries to actively prevent people from doing that. So if you write an app which there's the Android notifications API, you will receive the WhatsApp notifications. You'll receive cease and desist letters. Google has native support. You would write something using the notification listener service to say, I want to receive notifications from these packages. Facebook's main one is called Katana. The Messenger one is called Orca. WhatsApp, Instagram, whatever you want to receive messages from. And shortcomings are that it only captures whatever goes to the notification API, which is usually a cut-down version of the actual message. You don't have any of the other media or videos and other stuff. It's just the first few words of it. But you know that the message has come in, and you could build an app that consolidates all this data. The other way you can extract data from WhatsApp is target the data store. Till one of the new versions, it was using an unencrypted SQLite database. So the search in WhatsApp uses SQLite full text search. SQLite, I didn't know, was a very, very cool database. And all of the data is in this database. In the modern versions, it's encrypted. You can get software which will pick up that database, or you can use jailbroken Android, and you can extract message histories from that. And you're Google, and you want to read the messages, so you basically make a keyboard that will read the messages. So this was some exchange lately on Twitter about not WhatsApp, but Signal, which uses similar protocols, saying, yeah, this is the Android feature called Smart Replies. If you upgrade it to a new Android version, Google is reading all your messages. Yeah. You could write your own custom keyboard and read the messages and not respect the flag WhatsApp says saying private, don't read these messages. It's up to the keyboard to respect that. It's like a suggestion, a hint. So yeah, so apps can say that don't read, but then the OS can disregard it. Yeah, so there you go. So then after I don't know if anyone has followed the politics of WhatsApp acquisition and subsequent departure of the WhatsApp founders from Facebook. So once Facebook acquired it, they tried to monetize WhatsApp. So they tried to set up an API that you could request access to and get your organization vetted. They would ask you to give statistics of all the messages you are receiving and sending, which is another reason. There was sort of chicken and egg, like how am I going to give you statistics if I can't download all my messages? But yeah, so you could ask, I'm going to go and count all the messages on everyone's phones in this organization. Anyway, so you could give them statistics, and they would say you're worthy enough to have access to the Facebook's official business API, WhatsApp for Business API. Typically, it turned out to be only for large clients who they would be easy to monetize. You had to be a bank or KLM, which became one of the original organizations to have access to WhatsApp API. So yeah. Or you could ask for access from an API vendor middleware who had an established presence in the messaging space, i.e. So they already had a client base. It was easier for Facebook to deal with this middleware vendor, and they would herd all the clients who were already using messaging via their platform. Yeah, so I just put in a line about Libra. I should update this, but like WhatsApp is sort of going into this payment via WhatsApp thing. Facebook has tried Libra. I don't know how the success of that will be. And then the banks in Africa, certain banks in Africa have access to WhatsApp API. You can get it via Twilio. Note the line about groups being not supported. Groups are not supported. So after 6 months of trying, I was in a startup, we work from cafes and stuff. This is one of my colleagues. We finally got official access via Twilio. So after I had done all this interesting stuff, hacking stuff around, and then, yeah, so we can, but we still don't have, it's not time to celebrate. We have 400 groups, but they still don't have active group chats. Due to like the whole web of trust building, you can build trust with one person and have that automated, but if you're having a large group chat, you have to build the web of trust and have all the keys shared on the group to the bot in some fashion. So that I haven't figured out group chat via a middleware vendor yet. Via the API, it should be possible. The WhatsApp API just has something saying this is your group ID. So it should be possible, but not possible through the middleware vendors yet. So now we have a human command line. So basically you can send messages that way SSH in to something and you ask a server to do something. You can WhatsApp someone and ask them to do something, and that's how the organization functions. The organization is a group of nodes, humans, who you message and ask to do stuff, or they send you messages back. So that's how group chats and things function. A group is like a cluster of humans. Human to machine lets you do automation. So you can send a message saying this truck has broken down, and it gets flagged, and a database entry gets created saying this is that unreliable thing. It breaks down often. You just because even though we are used to building a lot of our software engineering career has been building apps and user interfaces and stuff, which you have to learn how to use, but maybe language is easy and it's a natural interface. We already interface with each other with, and you can say truck blah, blah, blah has broken down, blah, blah, blah needs a new wing. This one has, we are run out of supply of plasmas and more. The machine to human information that, yes, your blood supply has been, is there, it's going to be arriving in 10 minutes, wait for the parachute drop. So the human to machine interaction was special interest because that would sort of enable scaling of stuff and possibly audit logging, trailing, analyzing data arriving. Another story. So who has heard of NotPetya? Yeah, a fair few people. So this is the story of Maersk, another logistics giant, using WhatsApp or using WhatsApp in anger or pain or whatever you want to call it. So Maersk got infected by NotPetya via this software in Ukraine, and all of their network went down. So there was this talk about engineers drop your tools, so they were forced to drop all their tools, their enterprise IT tools. So they couldn't use SIP, email, couldn't use any other thing. So one of the guys started using his personal WhatsApp to coordinate the recovery effort until they found a server, an offline server somewhere in Nigeria with their core platform code from which they restarted all of their systems. It was estimated they lost $200 to $300 million. So again, why bother about WhatsApp? Sort of thing. Cool. So another WhatsApp interesting thing I did after extracting a bunch of data was I'm in this WhatsApp channel with a lot of my high school friends. I wanted to see who was the most chatty on it, who was sending the most messages. So this particular, I've tried to protect identity except for Kevin. So they're sending how much more messages and just looking at what language the messages were in. There needs to be good NLP infrastructure for emojis. I hope someone is working on NLP for emojis. So the thing interprets emojis as Tigrinya, which is language in Ethiopia. Anyway. We can map which user mostly speaks in what form, links, videos, yeah. So you can see down here in very little font, yeah, it's sort of legible. Most of it is English, a lot of Swahili, a lot of media, and a lot of emojis, some emojis, Tigronias. So the analysis for the language detection was done using LangDetect, which is like I think a Google library. So for my applications, I ended up using Natural Language Toolkit, NLTK, which is like uses a lot of grammar and linguistics research to analyze mostly English. Not very good at the stuff. You can do stemmers, tokenizers. Consider how many times you have mistyped a command in the command line, and then you go, ah. So if the command line sound supported in LTK, you could write stuff, and maybe it would be misunderstood. But yeah, so you are talking to a machine in WhatsApp, and there are spelling errors. The actual interface isn't a real command line, but you can get away with certain mistakes, and then it will understand, have the difference between the actual string and the real string, and then how git functions. When you write PSUH, did you mean git push? Sort of stuff, yeah. Hopefully, yeah, the parsers get better. This was a slide I did for fun. How I was doing a small talk at I was participating in a bunch of people doing self-learning using the Stanford NLP lecture series in Kenya. And the format was that you listen to the lecture yourself, and you prepare 1 or 2 slides and come and give the lecture to the rest of the people in the group. So there was this talk, the one lecture about dynamic memory neural networks, and which is sort of relevant to this WhatsApp series of messages coming in and a story being built and then something getting trained with a sequence of events so that it can answer arbitrary questions which are not explicitly stated in the story, but you can infer from the sequence of events that took place. So this is like a general purpose neural network, dynamic memory neural network. So some of this stuff is hard to do in Africa because the first part, the knowledge basis for a lot of the African languages doesn't exist. So which can be sort of bootstrapped by collecting a lot of corpus of data. So the bots and apps are converged. So there's a lot of focus on building UI apps, small UIs and stuff. So Slack, which is probably the most common work chat system we use these days, has been trying to implement small user interfaces within the chat interface and provide the validation using the user interface that pure chat cannot provide, or you have to do fancy neural networks to do, whereas a user interface is much more constrained and will validate dates and every piece of data in isolation. So that sort of are converging, so you can invoke a bot using a command, and then the bot will enrich whatever you're saying using validated small pieces of user interface. And I guess this is my final slide. Let me just double check. Yeah. So the developing the command line as I did for operating an enterprise is difficult, or dealing with all that data in a normal manner, protected manner is, when you're part of a company, you have this thing, understanding that all your data will be managed by the company securely, hopefully. And then that means if WhatsApp is being used by the company, you'll have to set up a company WhatsApp for you to use. And as the time grows and more of the chatbots understand your personality, perhaps it will have easier time understanding what you're typing. There are emerging communication modes like emojis and other abbreviations and stuff, or also other language corpus which needs to be improved for the comprehension of these things to improve. And then we are delegating a lot of our trust to third-party commercial companies like WhatsApp or Signal, and some more from open source perspective, a lot more work or traction. It's difficult. Network effect is difficult. It needs to be done to like sort of have alternatives where you can audit the code, have transparency, and have build trust around, yes, things are being done. Governments are being strange. They're saying this encrypted stuff needs to have backdoors. So, so yeah, so there is a lot of those discussions are also coming around this communication modes. There is XMPP, OMEMO stuff, which may be a bit heavyweight, but there is also Signal. And then you have to also build trust in the platform that your keyboard is not reading all your messages. That's the final slide. You have to get data from A to B, and there are different ways of getting there. I've tried to draw the Cybertruck, but yeah, so any questions? I don't know. How did I do for time? Is there enough time?
Plenty of time, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
We've got about 10 minutes.
Okay, that's the plan. Is that mine?
So my question is a bit of a geek question. You've obviously done a really good job of looking at completely independent implementations of the WhatsApp and or Signal client.
Yeah.
Another notion of independence would be not to rely on the directory of effectively public keys or initial steps of the Diffie-Hellman exchange that those companies provide. Do you know how hard or easy it is in practice to run your own?
So to run your own...
to run your own directory, so that if you and your friend haven't talked together before, or if your friend is offline when you want to try and send them a message, to not have to rely on the company to be doing that transaction. Okay, so the notice I'm talking about here are the free open source solutions. So there is XMPP was an established chat protocol. They have layered the Signal protocol on top of it as an extension. OMEMO is the extension is called. And you can run your own Jabber XMPP server with the Signal protocol on top, because it encrypts the message. XMPP is a message exchange protocol. So if you encrypt, you can run your Diffie-Hellman Signal protocol on top, and then you can use XMPP underneath. It's the OMEMO extension is part of XMPP extensions. You can self-host and run that.
Thanks. Do we have any other questions? All right. Please. Sorry, there we go.
Hi, I'm Martin. You did promise that you're going to show us how to break out of the walled garden, and somehow I feel like this work, I really like it. I'm going to look into it. It is a client that is part of the walled garden, and I was wondering if is there any way? Do you see any way, after looking at this protocol, to have a single relay, for instance, handle multiple accounts?
So you mean not use the WhatsApp client?
Well, I'd like to.
So the breaking out of the walled garden, my idea was that you can get the messages that you're getting in WhatsApp outside, so you could build your own client using your understanding. So if you did the enhancement that WhatsApp or UseUp or something else needs, you can build your own client that emulates the WhatsApp protocol, does an key exchange, and you use your own non-WhatsApp client, because In principle, with the end-to-end exchange, it shouldn't care that you're using their app. You should be able to use some other app to emulate the same generate the same keys and exchange messages and still use their bus. And then optionally, you can also, as she was saying, use a different broker and follow the same protocol, which is understood, and there are papers around it, and use the same end-to-end encryption and not live in WhatsApp. If you have friends, so the walled garden is created by all your friends being in the garden and enjoying it. And so that way, you'll have to have something that supports your own channels and then overlaps with the WhatsApp one so that you have them all in the same directories, in the same listing, and you can respond and receive and slowly migrate people into another garden, make a door to another garden and move them there.
Thank you.
Sorry about the analogy, but yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So out of the multiple methods you tried and mentioned earlier, what would you recommend for like amusing myself over a weekend?
Depends on whether you're comfortable with doing what database work or protocol work or JavaScript work. If you're interested in doing like protocol work, I think looking at the Axolotl protocol and seeing what's going wrong or how WhatsApp is blocking that and working around that. If you are a JavaScript fan, over the weekend you can just play around with Puppeteer and support groups and channels. So you need a lot of JavaScript parsing to make sense of all the stuff coming into that. So you can build stuff around that. You can also, if you have WhatsApp, Twilio and others also provide a sandbox. You can just message the pre-built one number in the sandbox just to amuse yourself and see how the messages come and how to parse, play around with text parsing. Another interesting thing is, I don't know if people know it's not easy, you can go into a particular chat and click through the dot menu and export the contents of all of a chat to a text file. You have to do it yourself. So it takes a while. It basically unencrypts the SQLite database for that particular channel and collates a text file, and then you can email it to yourself, and then you can see your messaging history. Yeah.
We've got time for one more question.
Hi.
Hi.
I believe the way that PGP used to do group, well, still does group messaging, is have a single secret key which is encrypted against every public key of each recipient. Is that the way that they're doing it?
No. No, so currently what they're doing it is the group, once you become a member of the group, you receive everyone's public key. And that's how they're doing the thing, and that's done out of band of the end-to-end encrypted protocol. And that's sort of some of the vulnerabilities the security researchers pointed out.
We do actually have another 5 minutes. Sorry, I can't read.
Sorry, I didn't
so
prepare enough content. Maybe we can watch the full video of the drone taking off.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.